The cold preserves everything. It preserves the bodies. And it preserves the secrets. We like to think of winter as a time for holidays and warm fires. But historically, winter is the season of death, of isolation, of things that watch from the tree line, waiting for the fire to die down. From the hikers who cut their way out of their own tent to escape something invisible, to the entity that walked over 100 miles of rooftops in a single night. These aren't just stories, they are documented events. Welcome to the Black Lantern Files. The storm arrived faster than predicted. 1 minute the highway was clear. The next, visibility dropped to nothing. Just snow and headlights and the faint suggestion of road beneath the tires. Cell service died 10 miles back. The radio hissed, then went silent. There were 3 of us in the truck. Evan was driving. Mark sat shotgun. I was in the back, camera bag at my feet. We were heading north to document abandoned winter settlements. Real places. Real stories. Nothing paranormal. That's what we told ourselves. By the time we reached the pass, the snow was knee-deep and climbing. That's when Evan slowed. "Do you see that?" he asked. At first I thought it was a trick of the light, but then the headlights caught it clearly. Footprints not scattered, not messy. A single line crossing the road at a perfect angle. Each print identical. Deep, clean. Too clean for fresh snowfall. They were shaped wrong. Split down the middle, like a cloven hoof. Mark laughed, uneasy. "Dear." Evan shook his head. "Dear don't walk like that. The prints didn't wander. They didn't pause. They crossed the road and vanished into the trees on the other side, climbing a slope that should have been too steep. We should have kept driving. Instead, we stopped. I don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Or that quiet pressure you feel when something is wrong and your brain hasn't caught up yet." The forest was silent. No wind, no animals. The snow muffled everything. Then we heard it. A sound like breathing. Not close, not far. Just present, surrounding. Evan muttered, "Let's go." As he shifted back into drive, the engine stalled. Once, twice. On the third try, the lights flickered. And that's when Mark pointed ahead. Someone was standing in the road. A girl, barefoot. Wearing a thin dress that clung stiffly to her legs. Her hair was frozen into sharp strands around her face. Her lips were blue. Her eyes dark and unfocused. She didn't wave. She just stood there. We argued, quietly, frantically. Evan said no. Mark said we couldn't leave her. I didn't say anything. I was staring at the snow beneath her feet. It wasn't disturbed. No footprints leading to her. No prints behind her. She was just there. Evan opened the door. The cold rushed in. She climbed inside without a word, sat between us on the bench seat. The truck dipped slightly under her weight. She was solid. She smelled like wet metal. Like ozone. Like something thawing. "Where are you headed?" Mark asked. She gave an address. An old ranger cabin. Abandoned, according to our maps. Evan started driving. No one spoke. A mile passed. Then 2. I looked down at my camera, checking the red light. It was still recording. When I looked back up, the girl was gone. The seat was soaked. Water pooled beneath where she'd been sitting, spreading slowly, unnaturally cold. Mark swore. Evan slammed the brakes. Silence. Then we saw it. The cabin. A single light burned inside. We didn't talk about turning back. When Evan knocked, the door opened immediately. An old man stood there, wrapped in a heavy coat. His eyes flicked past us, to the truck. "She found you too," he said. Inside, the cabin was warm. Too warm. A fire crackled. A pot simmered on the stove. The old man poured coffee with shaking hands. "She comes every winter," he said. "Always during storms. Always brings people here." I asked what happened to her. He didn't answer. He just gestured to the wall. Photographs, search teams, missing hikers, frozen bodies pulled from ravines, newspaper clippings going back decades. And one photograph in the center. 3 men, nearly naked, beneath a tree, hands torn raw. My stomach dropped. "That was my crew," the old man said. 1959, we ran. Don't remember why. Just terror. Like something was inside us, pushing us out. He looked at Evan. At Mark. At me. "It doesn't hunt," he said. "It doesn't chase. It makes you leave." The fire flickered. The pot on the stove rattled, lid trembling. Outside, the wind returned. Harder now. Louder. I noticed something then. The footprints outside the cabin window. Not just one line. Hundreds. Circling. The old man stood abruptly. "You can't stay," Evan protested. The storm was too strong. The roads were gone. The old man grabbed his coat. "Staying is worse." The lights went out. In the darkness, something moved. Not a shape, a pressure, a vibration in my chest. My thoughts began to fragment. Panic rose without reason. "Run." I understood then. Not fear. Instruction. Mark screamed. I don't remember leaving the cabin. I don't remember opening the door. I only remember snow on my bare feet, and the sound of breathing everywhere at once. I woke up in a hospital 3 days later. Evan was found frozen near the road. Mark was never found. They said hypothermia, disorientation, exposure. They asked why my hands were bleeding. I didn't answer. Sometimes, in January, I wake up smelling ozone. Sometimes I hear breathing in the walls. And sometimes, when it snows just right, I see a single line of prints outside my window, waiting for me to follow. They documented everything. Journals, cameras, checklists. They named their route, joked in photographs, laughed at the cold. They planned to return in 3 weeks. They never did. The mountain they chose was called Kholat Syakhl, Dead Mountain. The Mansi people avoided it. Not because it was steep, but because nothing stayed there long. When the group failed to report back, search teams were dispatched. Days passed before anyone found the campsite. It sat on a slope. Exposed, wind-scoured. An odd place to pitch a tent for seasoned hikers. Then they saw the tent. It was collapsed, partially buried, but not destroyed by snow. The fabric was slashed. Long, panicked cuts, from the inside out. This detail matters, because whatever drove them out did not allow time for thought. Inside the tent, everything remained. Boots, coats, food, money, cameras, a stove still packed away. In -30-degree temperatures, 9 rational adults had abandoned their only shelter without putting on shoes. Footprints led away from the site, not running prints. Walking, bare feet. Socks, one boot between them. The tracks moved downhill, toward the forest, calm and spaced, as if the group believed safety was close. The first bodies were found beneath a cedar tree at the forest's edge. 2 men, nearly naked, hands burned and raw, as if they had tried to climb the tree, or tear at it. Small branches above were broken. Something had been happening overhead. Between the tree and the tent lay 3 more bodies. Dyatlov among them. Spread out, frozen mid-motion. One arm raised. Faces locked in expressions that searchers would later describe as confused. Not fear. Confusion. The last 4 were found months later, deeper in the ravine. Buried under meters of snow. Their injuries were worse, much worse. Crushed ribs. Shattered skulls. Internal damage, comparable to a high-speed collision. But no external bruising. No broken skin. No signs of impact with rocks or trees. One woman was missing her tongue, her eyes, soft tissue from her face. The official explanation was scavenging animals, but her mouth showed no defensive wounds. No tearing consistent with feeding. Her tongue was gone cleanly, as if removed. Autopsies raised more questions than answers. Some clothing tested positive for radiation. Not background levels. Elevated levels. Enough to be documented. Enough to be classified. One hiker had worked at a nuclear facility years earlier. That was offered as explanation. It didn't explain the others. Witnesses came forward. Local villagers. Other hikers. Military personnel. They spoke of lights in the sky. Orange spheres drifting silently over the mountains that same night. Moving against the wind. Stopping, hovering, watching. Photographs recovered from the hikers' cameras showed something strange. Blurred frames. Overexposed light. A final image that looked like motion. Or panic. Or someone turning toward something just outside the frame. The investigation was abruptly closed. Cause of death. A compelling natural force. No further explanation. Files sealed. Families warned not to ask questions. Photographs confiscated. Locations restricted. The mountain was declared off-limits for years. Decades later, avalanche theories emerged. Infrasound, katabatic winds. Sudden pressure changes that induce panic. Each explanation addressed one detail. None addressed all of them. Avalanches don't make people cut their way out of tents instead of using the exit. Wind doesn't cause internal injuries without external trauma. Fear doesn't remove tongues. And none of it explains the footprints. Because the tracks show something else. They show the group leaving together, then stopping, then spreading out. As if something had followed them from the tent. As if something had forced them to separate. In recent years, a new expedition returned to Kalatsiakal with modern equipment, drones, thermal imaging, geophones. They camped near the original site. Filmed everything. Laughed nervously at night. On the 3rd evening, one of the cameras malfunctioned. The footage was later recovered. It shows the tent shaking. Not violently, just enough. Then a sound, low, vibrational, like pressure on the ears. One of the hikers reaches for the zipper. Another grabs a knife. The camera cuts. The drone footage shows something else. A shape moving upslope, against gravity, against wind. Large, indistinct. Distorting the snow around it, not crushing it. The expedition packed up at dawn, and left without explanation. The footage was never released publicly, but one technician leaked a description online before it vanished. He said the shape wasn't solid. It looked like the absence of something. Like the darkness itself had learned to move. We build walls. We light fires. We zip tents. We trust experience. But winter strips those illusions away. Out there, in the cold, panic isn't always yours. Sometimes it's placed inside you. And sometimes, when 9 people flee the same unseen thing, barefoot into the dark, it's because whatever found them knew exactly how to get in. It always starts the same way. A road, a storm, and a decision made too late. North Dakota winters don't announce themselves, they ambush. One moment the highway is clear. The next, the world collapses into white noise. Wind howls across flat land with nothing to stop it. No trees, no hills. Just miles of open darkness, where headlights feel small and temporary. The legend is older than the roads themselves. The phantom hitchhiker. A ghost story told in diners. Laughed off at truck stops. But in North Dakota, it appears in police files. Logged, repeated, unchanged. January is when it happens most. The driver is usually alone, coming home late, fighting fatigue, fighting the storm. Snow sweeps sideways across the windshield, forcing the wipers to work harder than they should. Radio fades in and out. Phone has no signal. Then the headlights catch movement. A girl on the shoulder. She is always young, late teens, early 20s. She wears a dress meant for summer. Thin fabric. No coat, no gloves. Her hair clings to her face, stiff with frost. Her lips are blue. Not lipstick blue. Bloodless blue. The driver slows. Every instinct says to keep going. To not stop. But something about her posture pulls at the conscience. She isn't waving. She isn't panicking. She just walks, slowly. Like she knows someone will stop. When the car pulls over, she opens the door, without hesitation. She is solid. That detail appears in every report. Solid. Heavy enough to shift the suspension. Cold enough to fog the windows. She smells wrong. Not like sweat or perfume. Like ozone. Like wet concrete. Like something thawing after being frozen too long. She doesn't say thank you. She gives an address. Always nearby. Always rural. Always an old farmhouse that hasn't changed in decades. The driver pulls back onto the road. Conversation is minimal. Some say she stares straight ahead. Others say she watches the side mirror, as if afraid of something following. If asked where she's coming from, she gives vague answers. A friend's house. A dance. A party that ended early. Miles pass. The storm thickens. At some point, the driver looks over. The passenger seat is empty. The door is still locked. The window rolled up. The seatbelt unused. The fabric of the seat is soaked. A shallow puddle spreads across the vinyl. Melted snow. Or something like it. Some drivers scream. Some pull over. Some keep driving. Hands shaking. Heart hammering. Most of them do the same thing. They go to the address anyway. The farmhouse sits back from the road, half buried by drifts. A single light glows in one window. When the driver knocks, an old woman answers. Her face is tired, not surprised. She already knows why he's there. "You're the 5th one tonight," she says. Or the 3rd. Or the 7th. The number changes. The story doesn't. She invites the driver inside, offers coffee, shows a framed photograph on the wall. A girl in a dress, smiling, alive. The same girl who stood on the roadside hours earlier. My daughter, the woman says. She froze to death in that drift 10 years ago. Search teams found the body less than a mile from the house. Curled into herself, fingertips blackened, eyes open, as if she had been watching the road until the very end. The driver leaves, shaken. The storm eventually passes. Life moves on. Until January comes back around. Police began noticing patterns in the 1980s. Reports filed separately. Different counties. Different decades. Same description. Same address. Same woman. They visited the farmhouse. It was empty. No heat. No electricity. No signs of recent habitation. The photograph was still there, covered in dust. The records showed the mother had died 5 years after her daughter. Heart failure, alone, in the same house. After that, the reports didn't stop. They increased. Drivers claimed the girl no longer spoke at all. That her skin burned with cold. That frost spread across the dashboard where she touched it. Some said she whispered directions that didn't match the address she gave. Back roads, detours, roads not on any map. One trucker reported that she turned to him just before vanishing and asked a question. "Did you see me?" He didn't answer. He couldn't. The most recent case happened last winter. A state trooper responding to a stranded vehicle found a sedan idling on the shoulder. Door open. Snow piling inside. The driver was gone. Footprints led away from the car, heading into the storm. Beside them were smaller prints, bare feet, leading back toward the road. And when the trooper checked the passenger seat, he found water. Still cold. Still slowly spreading. January is coming again. And the files say she's already been seen this year. Walking, waiting, hoping someone will stop. In the deep boreal forests of North America, winter is not a season. It is a test. The Cree and Ojibwe people have a name for what rides the wind when the snow won't stop falling. A presence that slips between trees and settles into starving minds. They call it the wendigo. Not as a monster you can fight, but as a warning. Because the true horror isn't what stalks you from the forest. It's what waits inside you. Swift Runner was not a madman. He was not an outcast. He was trusted. A skilled guide. A husband. A father. He knew the land. He knew the winters. He had survived them before. When the brutal cold of 1878 tightened its grip, Swift Runner retreated with his family into a small log cabin, deep in what is now Alberta. The snow came early. Then it stayed. Trails vanished. Game disappeared. Weeks passed without a single successful hunt. At first, they rationed carefully. A little flour, dried meat, thin broth that barely warmed the stomach. Then the food ran out. Hunger does something strange to the body. It slows time, sharpens sound, makes the smallest smell feel overwhelming. The children cried at night. His wife grew quiet. Swift Runner told them help would come. He believed it. He had to. Days stretched into weeks. That was when he heard it. At first, it was only the wind pushing through the pines. A long, hollow sound that pressed against the cabin walls. But then it began to change. The wind started to whisper. Not words. Not yet. Just intention. a pressure in his skull. A suggestion that would not leave. Eat. He tried to ignore it. He prayed. He stared into the fire until his eyes burned. But hunger doesn't argue. It waits. And the voice grew clearer with every empty night. Eat. Swift Runner began to dream while awake. He would see food where none existed. Smell cooking meat when the pot was empty. His thoughts turned sharp, predatory. The people he loved began to look different, frail, weak, made of warmth in a frozen world. The voice told him the stories were wrong. It said the wendigo wasn't a beast, it was survival. One night, the crying stopped. Spring came slowly. When authorities finally reached the cabin, they expected to find bones, graves, or a frozen family huddled together. What they found instead made hardened men step backward. Swift Runner opened the door himself. He was alive, strong, healthy. His cheeks were full. His eyes alert. Smoke drifted from the chimney. Inside, the cabin was clean. Too clean. Pots rested on the stove. Some still contained stew. Thick, greasy. The kind that sticks to the sides. But the family was gone. No tracks leading away. No signs of struggle. No burial sites in the surrounding snow. Only bones. Carefully broken. Carefully cleaned. Hidden beneath the floorboards. Swift Runner did not resist arrest. He did not deny what he had done. He spoke calmly, clearly. He said his family had been taken by the spirit of the forest. He said the wendigo had entered him during the starvation and whispered the only way to live. The doctors called it madness. They gave it a name. Wendigo psychosis. A condition where hunger fractures the mind. Where fear and folklore bleed together until cannibalism feels inevitable. Swift Runner was found guilty and sentenced to hang. On the morning of his execution, he asked for one thing. To be fed. The guards laughed and gave him bread. He ate slowly, methodically. When asked if he felt remorse, Swift Runner shook his head. He said the hunger never leaves. He said once you listen, you are never truly full again. As the noose was placed around his neck, he leaned forward and whispered something that was never recorded. Only one guard heard it. Years later, he would repeat it in a bar, drunk and pale. Swift Runner had smiled. He said the spirit doesn't die with the body. It moves on. It waits for winter. It waits for hunger. And long after Swift Runner was buried, trappers began reporting something strange in those same woods. Cabins found warm, fires burning, pots simmering, but no people inside, only footsteps in the snow, leading away into the trees. February 8, 1855, Devon, England. The storm had arrived without warning, rolling in from the moors like a living thing. By nightfall, the wind screamed through chimneys and rattled shutters, until even the hardiest sleepers pulled blankets over their heads. Snow fell thick and relentless, swallowing roads, fields, and hedgerows alike. By morning, the county lay buried beneath an untouched white silence. At first, it was beautiful. Doors creaked open. Farmers stepped onto their thresholds, villagers paused, breathing clouds into the frozen air, admiring how the world seemed clean again. Then someone noticed the marks. They were footprints. Not scattered. Not wandering. But precise. Deliberate. A single line of impressions cut across the snow, as if drawn by an unseen ruler. Each print was cloven, split cleanly down the middle, 4 inches long, sharp at the edges, as though whatever made them carried weight, but not warmth. They did not resemble the tracks of any animal known to the countryside. Not fox, not deer, not livestock escaped from a pen. The line continued. Across gardens. Across lanes. Across fields where no fence had been opened. And then people realized something was wrong. The tracks did not stop at obstacles. They did not turn aside. They did not hesitate. Where a wall stood, the footprints went straight to its base, and then appeared again at the top, perfectly aligned, as though something had simply walked up the vertical brick. 14 feet high in some places. No disturbance in the snow along the face of the wall. No broken mortar, just prints at the bottom and prints at the top. In village after village, the same pattern emerged. The footprints crossed rooftops dusted in snow, stepping from tile to tile without slipping. They passed over haystacks and narrow sheds, leaving no marks except those 4-inch impressions. In one town, they vanished at the mouth of a drain pipe, barely wide enough for a child's arm, only to reappear on the other side, unchanged. Most disturbing of all, the tracks crossed the frozen Ieshi estuary. The ice beneath them remained unbroken. No cracks, no fractures. As though the thing walking weighed nothing at all. Word spread quickly. Panic followed faster. By noon, it was clear the footprints stretched for over 100 miles. Weaving through Devon towns and isolated farms alike, they passed churches. They passed graveyards. They passed bedrooms. In more than one home, the line of prints led directly to a wall, and stopped beneath a second-story window. Residents swore that when they opened their curtains that morning, frost clung to the glass from the outside, as if something had been standing there, breathing. No one reported hearing footsteps during the night. No barking dogs, no startled horses, no screams. Whatever had walked through Devon, had done so silently, patiently, while the county slept. Theories spread, but none held. Some suggested a rare animal driven mad by the storm. Others blamed a hoax, though no one could explain how a prankster could travel such distance in one night, scaling walls and rooftops without leaving a single misstep. Scientists attempted to recreate the prints and failed. The spacing between each step was too consistent, too purposeful. Farmers refused to leave their homes after dark. Mothers barred shutters that had never been closed before. Men gathered in whispers, glancing at the snow even after the tracks had melted, half expecting them to return. And the authorities. They were not the ones summoned. The locals called the clergy. Priests walked the villages, blessing homes and barns, sprinkling holy water where the tracks had passed. Some refused to step directly into the footprints, choosing instead to walk around them, as though afraid of contamination. Church bells rang that evening, not for celebration, but for warning. Old folklore resurfaced. Tales long dismissed as superstition suddenly felt close. Stories of the devil wandering the countryside, marking land, testing doors, counting souls. In Devon, the prints were quickly given a name, the devil's footprints. Within days, the snow melted. The evidence vanished. Life resumed its rhythm, though something had shifted. And whenever a storm rolled in, villagers listened more carefully than before. No explanation has ever fully accounted for what happened that night. No animal has been proven capable of leaving such tracks. No human method explains the impossible path they followed. All that remains are the reports, the sketches. The collective memory of a county that woke to find something had walked through their world without permission. Something that did not knock, Something that did not stumble. Something that came, observed, and moved on. And if it walked even once, silently, in the dead of winter, there is no rule that says it hasn't done so again.